and welcome to Getting Warmer with George Warmer. Investors are on the hunt for income-generating properties that make sense. This is particularly difficult in today's interest rate environment. Borrowing costs are up and bank terms are more stringent. Sellers, for their part, are also concerned. They need to find replacement properties with similar or better returns or other vehicles that provide a similar or better return. How can we balance their needs and the buyer's needs at the same time? One way to do that is with seller financing. In the event a seller has a tremendous amount of equity in their property, they can become a bank of sorts, lending all or a portion of the required purchase. Seller financing comes in primarily two forms. One called a contract for deed, and the other a note and trust indenture. For today's discussion, we're going to focus on the note and trust indenture. In a note and trust indenture, at closing, title to the property transfers to the buyer. The seller in return receives a note or a promise for repayment by the buyer. In some situations where the seller is debt-free on the property, the seller may elect to be the lender for the buyer. In these situations, it would require a particularly strong buyer who can provide guarantees and possibly other collateral to meet the seller's risk requirements. In essence, the seller turns over the property to the buyer and receives stable monthly cash flow. And the buyer accepts the future liabilities of the property. The amount of seller financing may depend on a couple of different facts. One, how much equity does the seller have in the property and capacity to lend? Two, what are the risks of lending to the buyer? How strong is the buyer? How likely are they to repay? Seller financing can be broad in terms. One, it could be, say, 15% of the down payment. In other words, the buyer comes along for 15% of the required 30% by the bank, and the seller comes along for 15%. It is important to know that there are risks in seller financing. In this particular scenario, the bank will be in first position and the seller will be in second position or subordinate to the bank. If for some reason the bank needs to foreclose, the seller will only get their money after the bank gets their balance. In summary, seller financing can be a creative way to bridge the gap between the buyer's borrowing expenses and the bank's expectations. Like all investment vehicles, seller financing comes with risks and limitations. Before entering into a seller finance agreement, please visit with your accountant, your attorney, and of course, your commercial broker. If you're entertaining a 1031 exchange, it's particularly important that you understand the consequences of seller financing. And this is, of course, something the accountant can assist you with. As for your attorney, they can explain the benefits and limitations of both contract for deed and note and trust indenture and help you make the best decision for yourself. I hope this information has been helpful to you today. Please have a warmer day.